Hi everyone, this is Professor Ray. Welcome back to part 2 of writing a thesis statement. In this video, we're going to go over some thesis statements. We're going to evaluate them, revise them as needed, and I think you'll really enjoy this video. If you haven't watched part 1 of writing a thesis statement, please do so because I go over the specifics of what a good thesis statement is. I give some general tips for writing a good thesis. I also give some examples of different kinds of thesis statements. So yeah, it's real important that you watch part 1 before you continue to part 2, this part. So please keep that in mind. All right, let's begin with going over this thesis checklist. And these items, the items on the checklist, come from the handout, the first part of this handout, and also from Jean Wyrick's Writing a Thesis Statement chapter, which I've linked to this week's module. So please keep that in mind. All right, so let's quickly go over the thesis checklist, and then we'll get right into evaluating those thesis statements. Now, if one of the items on the checklist does not resonate with you, if you don't remember what it means, again, please go back to video 1 in which I explain the different components or different ways to make a thesis effective. All right, so let's go. Let's start with number 1. A good thesis announces and limits the subject of the paper. So remember, you want to have 2 parts in your thesis: your topic, and then the second part would be a provable idea, an idea that suggests an analysis, an explanation, and so on. Okay, so make sure you have those 2 parts. And again, I discussed that in the first video. All right, number 2, a good thesis statement is a contract between the writer and reader, which means that once you give the reader that thesis statement, you're telling that reader, this is what my paper will focus on. So it's very important that you support that thesis and you don't go off track. You're always, the evidence, the examples, and so on, always tie back to that thesis. All right, number 3, a good thesis statement governs everything that will and will not cover. Governs everything the paper will and will not cover. And that is related to number 2, which is everything that comes after that thesis has to connect back to it. So I say the thesis is like the thread running through your essay, and everything is connected to that thesis statement. Okay, so in essence, the thesis really governs the paper. Okay. All right, number 4, a good thesis statement makes a claim or assertion that can be proven with examples and evidence. Number 5, a good thesis statement is not overly narrow or too personal. And in the last video, part 1, I do point out the language in a thesis statement that makes it too personal. And I also give an example of a better thesis statement. Now, number 6 is very important. I'm going to highlight this for a minute. A good thesis statement is not a mere statement of fact. So you want to go beyond those, what I call so what statements of fact that, has your reader thinking to themselves, well, yeah, I know this already. Why is this important? Why is this interesting? So remember, get away from those factual thesis statements. And we'll look at some examples of those in a minute. Number 7, a good thesis statement is not a title. Okay, the title of your paper is just a very brief introduction to the topic. Your thesis statement has a topic plus that novel idea, okay, or provable idea. Number 8, a good thesis statement does not use in this paper I will language. Okay, you don't need to make announcements like that in your thesis statement. We know that you're going to discuss something in this, and we know it's a paper, we know it's an essay, you don't need to mention that. We know you're the one who will discuss the topic plus your interesting idea. So get away from the, those statements, those phrases. In this paper, I will discuss, I will show, I'm going to prove. Take out the personal pronoun I, take out in this paper, take out I will discuss, because your reader already knows this, all right? And then number 9, a good thesis statement displays some sophistication of thought. So it's not, again, a very simplistic, vague, okay, thesis statement that keeps your reader guessing as to what you will discuss in the essay. So make sure you flesh out those kind of simplistic ideas that need more detail so your reader knows exactly what you're going to prove in your essay. All right, so let's go ahead and evaluate these thesis statements. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at each one And we're going to decide if the thesis statement is C, correct, which it's a good thesis, it's a provable idea, or I see it needs improvement, all right? And again, you can go back to the guidelines for writing a good thesis in this handout, which is above in the first part, if you need a reference point. Okay, let's go straight to the first one. And it reads, email is invaluable and convenient. And, you know, at first glance, I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, well, yeah, we know this. Everybody knows that, we can't live without email now, and how convenient it is. I mean, you have to have an email address for work, for school, for your kids. I mean, it's just something we all need. So we're going to go ahead and put IC for that one, and we're going to call this a fact. Okay, now, how could we make this more a provable idea, something interesting? So let's try to revise this. So how about email is invaluable. Sorry, email is, we're going to make these into adjectives, and invaluable and convenient way, sorry, not way, I'm going to do method of communication in a rapidly growing world. Okay, so now we have a more interesting idea. Yes, okay, email is invaluable and convenient, but how does that go with a rapidly growing world? So this is an interesting idea that you could prove with examples and details in the essay, okay? All right, let's go on to number 2. One evening of a radio talk show one evening of a radio talk show amply illustrates both the appeal of such shows and their silliness, okay? And this one's okay, this one's correct. We would say, okay, this is more of an analytical thesis, so you would expect the writer to look at a specific, maybe radio talk show segment, or I guess the writer could look at it in general, and talk about how an episode appeals, right, to the reader. I'm sorry, amply illustrates both the appeal of such shows, meaning the listener likes it, but also the silliness of it. So you kind of have the serious and silliness together, which is interesting. That's an interesting idea I would want to hear more about. All right, let's go on to number 3. Good manners make our society work. And that's kind of like, okay, well, how? Why? The WH questions, right? So we're going to say that's IC, and that's really because it's vague. Okay, I got my different color here. I kind of like my colors to be the same. So let's see. There we go. But it's not going to be a fact. It's vague. And I guess, that could be a fact. That could be fact plus vague, because if you think about it, yeah, I think most people would agree that, yeah, good manners work well. People are with good manners. I mean, you have to have good manners to get along with people. Okay. But still, it's kind of a fact, vague. Well, why? So let's go ahead and we're going to change that. Okay, we're going to make it better. So how about this one? Good manners promote kindness and respect toward others. Okay, so now we have an idea. Again, it's a little more interesting than that somewhat factual, vague statement, and it's something that could be proven in the essay. Okay, so how? You're asking yourself, how do good manners promote kindness and respect towards others? Well, the writer would have to prove that with examples and details. Okay. All right. Number 4, the poem is about motherhood. Well, the first thing that comes to mind here is, well, what poem? Okay, what poem is the writer talking about? And that brings up another issue, which is you always need to be very specific about what you're discussing. So the first thing is, well, what's the poem, or what's the title of the poem at least? And you would, as a writer, want to introduce that poem anyway in your introduction before you state your thesis statement. So let's just say, well, this is just too vague. And we need to know what the poem is, and it's also somewhat a fact, because let's say we do know what the poem is, and we know it's about motherhood. It was like, okay, we know it's about motherhood, so what? So let's try to make this a little bit better. And then let's start by just stating the title of the poem somewhere in this thesis statement. So I'm going to go with something that could be analyzed. So the imagery in Dorothea Lasky's poem, The Birth, suggests the beauty of giving birth overshadows the pain. Okay, so let me read this again. The imagery in Dorothea Lasky's poem, The Birth, suggests the beauty of giving birth overshadows pain. So beauty the image of beauty is stronger than the pain the mother undergoes in this poem. And that's something that definitely could be proven in an essay. This is more of an analytical thesis statement because it's really literary analysis, right? Because the writer would provide different sections of that poem where the imagery suggests the beautifulness of giving birth, not really I'm sorry, the image of the beauty of birth really overtaking any mention of pain or outweighing the mention of pain. Okay. All right. Let's go on to number 5. Television is useful for children and a mindless escape for adults who do not want to think about their problems. And this one's fine. So we have the topic television as a useful tool for children, and also a mindless escape for adults who do not want to think about their problems. So, I mean, if you just stopped here, television is useful for children, that would be a fact. Yeah, we know that. But if you add the second part, okay, useful, but also a mindless escape. So you have kind of the two different groups here you're going to compare. So this would be, I would say, comparison contrast type of situation. And this one is fine. So let's go ahead and mark that C. So we're good there. All right, let's look at number 6. This one is interesting. I disliked American history in high school, but I like it in college. So I hope the first thing that comes to mind for you is this is too personal. Well, you don't know about this high school, the reader, right? I'm pretending I'm the reader. I don't know about this person's high school history class. It's too personal. It's too narrow because the reader, you would assume most of the readers out there can't relate to this experience. So let's go ahead. We're gonna mark this IC, and we're gonna say too personal, narrow, and we want to make it better. Okay, so here's something I came up with. College history courses offer more insights into social problems So let me read this part again. College history courses offer more insight into social problems than a sociology class or course. Let's be consistent here, okay? So let me read this again. College history courses offer more insights into social problems than a sociology course, which is interesting because we expect that a sociology course would be more of an authority on that topic. However, this writer feels that he or she learned more about that in a history class. So again, details, evidence, examples would have to prove that idea, and I think it's interesting. So this would be something I'd want to know more about in an essay. Okay. You could even say college history courses offer more insights into social problems. Yeah, we'll leave it as is. That's fine. All right. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This is not a 7. We're going to go on to there is a 7. Sorry about that. We're on number 7. All right, number 7. Drunken drivers whose perception and coordination are impaired should receive mandatory suspensions of their licenses. So this is interesting. So the topic is drunken drivers. And remember in the first video, I talked about using phrases such as should not, should, must, and these tell the reader there's some kind of claim or argument presented in this thesis statement. So this one's fine. We'll call this C. We have, yeah, again, the topic, which is drunken drivers, and this idea that they should have their licenses suspended because of the perception and coordination being impaired. So this is like a research paper thesis statement, and definitely could be proven in a 8 to 10 page paper. All right, let's go on to number 8. Business is a good major for many students. Okay, again, we're going to call this IC, and I hope you're thinking to yourself, well, why? Okay, why is it? So it's vague. Or you could also say fact, because yeah, business, MBAs for at least master's programs are, top degree, as far as popularity goes in the United States and other countries as well. So yeah, we could say, well, yeah, so what? We know it's a good major, but why? Give me a reason. So let's go ahead and correct this one. And we can say, let's see here, looking at my notes. Oh, here we go. Compared to other majors, students who major in business will have more job opportunities. Okay, so again, this is something that could be proven, could be shown in an essay through examples and evidence. Okay, so let me read that again. Compared to other majors, students who major in business will have more job opportunities. Actually, you don't even need the compared to other majors. You could just say this. Actually, that's a little redundant. I'm going to edit my own idea here. Students who major in business will have more job opportunities, let's just say in the future. Okay, something like that. So there's more of a balance in the sentence. And that's a provable idea, an interesting and provable idea. The writer would have to show with examples and evidence why students who major in business have more job opportunities. Okay. All right, we're here at the last one, and I'll go ahead and read it for you. The state's lenient divorce laws undermine the institution of marriage, which is fundamental to our culture, and they should certainly be made stricter for couples who have children. Okay. So first thing to ask yourself, what is the topic? And the topic is the state's lenient divorce laws. We don't know which state, but that couldn't be explained in the essay. And undermine the institution means kind of undermine means to cause damage to it. So we know, okay, this person is not for these laws, this person is against. And then we have this language, should certainly be made stricter. So this suggests argumentation, right? Some claim. So we would expect the writer to show with examples and evidence why the divorce laws should be stricter. Sorry. So we're going to call that C. That's correct. That's a pretty good thesis statement. And yeah, now when you have a longer thesis statement such as this one, let's just go back to the one about business. This is pretty straightforward and short. But this one has multi-parts. And when I say parts, I'm talking about phrases and clauses, really clauses. And, why is there this clause here? This adjective clause, well, which is fundamental to our culture. It's the purpose for it being there is to connect to the reader, right? To connect to someone who hopefully values culture, who values laws. Okay, so you can do this. You can add these little adjective clauses to make the idea stronger. But this is really the important part. This is the argument here for couples who have children. So you would expect as the reader for the writer here to talk about the why for couples who have children. Probably because children really they go through a lot when parents divorce, right? It's usually the hardest on them when you have children. Okay. All right, that was a lot to go over. I hope you found this video interesting and beneficial. Again, if some of this was a little rocky for you, please go back to the first part of this handout and review the different kinds of thesis statements, but also the tips for writing a thesis statement. Okay, thanks guys so much. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you.